Um, I suppose I should probably um, address the current news. 3 former bosses at the hospital arrested for gross negligence manslaughter. Um, this is going to be bad news for people who are interested in the truth about the miscarriage of justice. We know this is going to be bad news because it's published by Liz Hull. I mean, I actually, before I started, before I followed this Letby case, I'll be honest, when I was reading, anytime I was reading news articles, I would never actually think to look at who actually wrote the articles. It was only when I kept seeing loads and loads of hit pieces against Lucy Letby and just happened to notice that they were all published by this same person. But before the Letby case, I'd never even look at who wrote it, and so and that's something that I do now. And yeah, so this is going to be bad news. So the police are doubling down. I'm assuming, I don't know if I'm allowed to name names, but I'm assuming that they're arresting probably Tony Chambers, Ian Harvey, maybe Karen Rees, or possibly Stephen Cross. And Mark Mayes was talking yesterday about, what could the what could the police do to potentially throw a spanner in the works and stop the freight train of truth. And maybe this is have they perhaps found some loophole where if they charge these 3 managers or even one manager, is it a way of like battening down some tent pegs, loosely connecting the 2 things and complicating proceedings for the CCRC? Even if, or is it some sort of loophole? Well, one, it could be a gagging, a way of just stopping people from talking about it, talking about the case, or is it a loophole where even if the police potentially and everyone and the courts even accepted that there were no murders that took place, that by having this pinning these 3 bosses for covering up a crime that didn't commit, that never happened, pinning them for covering up a crime, they somehow Paul Hughes, they'll somehow link the 2 and stop proceedings for the CCRC. Even, like I say, even if they accept that no crimes actually happened, I don't know. It could just be a terrible delay tactic. I mean, Operation Duet. What would have perhaps been better for Paul Hughes is if he was able to find some more murders at Liverpool Women's Hospital, but obviously he couldn't find any. So they've gone down this route instead. So yeah, that's not good news. Actually, what I wanted to talk about was the story the other day that said it was something Word Streeting mentioned, and they sort of throw in Lucy Letby's name. Now, I'm just going to make a couple of points that I'm not on social media. I'm not on Twitterverse, so I don't know if anyone's made this point, but I've not seen anyone on YouTube mention it, so which is the site that I mainly use. So NHS to use AI to spot patterns of abuse or higher than expected deaths that could help us catch killers like Lucy Letby and Harold Shipman. Obviously, it's not good for us for them to throw Lucy Letby in with Harold Shipman. And Health Secretary Wes Streeting said he wants to embracing AI would make it easier to spot danger signs earlier. You need technology to identify patterns of abuse, deaths. Embrace. Hang on, isn't there already embrace? Reducing risks through audits and confidential inquiries, and I don't know much about it, so I'm just hoping to just highlight this, maybe point other people in a direction to look at. But it was my understanding that with Embrace, what they do is national surveillance and investigate the deaths of women and babies who die during pregnancy or shortly after. Embrace UK hopes to prevent similar deaths or serious complications in the future. It was my understanding that they already take all this data. And let's have a look at the Thurl inquiry. Ford is this is from the CQC. Was a CQC inspector. There are two sets of data. Well, a number of data sets that we will use around mortality. I think the one that we rely on most for neonatal mortality is the Embrace data, the HES data. So what we tend to do is, well, the analysts tend to do is bring together all the data from a variety of sources and determine whether or not that the trust is an outlier. And my understanding, and the understanding I shared with the inspection team, that the trust was not an outlier for mortality. And when we carried out the inspection on that understanding, so would AI have picked up anything to do with Letby? Probably not. In fact, it would have exonerated. I mean, there's a system already in place. So, we saw also Dr. John Gibbs trying to get his head around the numbers. There's a system already in place to detect these things, and it didn't flag up. And the reason it didn't flag up is because there was really no case. So my question is, would AI have picked up anything with regards to Letby? I would say it probably would have exonerated her.